Everyone, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Paranormal Beyond Disclosure. We are a weekly podcast dedicated to sincere, in-depth investigations into the paranormal, supernatural, and the metaphysical, with a special focus on the UFO topic. We take a sincere, analytical approach, thoroughly evaluating each case and its implications. Our discussions go beyond the surface as we engage with researchers, investigators, and experiencers to explore the deeper layers of their testimonies. We strive for high-resolution analysis, carefully examining evidence, patterns, and perspectives that challenge conventional thinking. If you're looking for a podcast that seeks deeper understanding, you're in the right place. Please be sure to like and subscribe and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. You can also visit us at www.paranormalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. Thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranormal Beyond Disclosure.
Okay, welcome to the show, everybody. So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different than what we normally do. So this is going to be an interview / kind of introduction to our new co-host, a kind of meet and greet featuring of our new co-host. We're going to talk about her experience. She's an experiencer. You would consider yourself an experiencer, or?
Yeah, of many things.
With paranormal experiences and UFO experiences, possible abduction experiences, and spiritual experiences, I would say. And we're just going to, I guess, jump straight into that and start at the beginning of your experiences. Should we give a little teaser? So there's abduction experiences. There is, what are we going to talk about?
I actually have, so from my book, which... super not advertising this, and I really want to make that clear. I am not advertising my book. I wrote it literally to help me process things. It wasn't to write a book. It was just I had to write my experiences out so that it wasn't just all in my head as I grew up. I literally just wrote this. This is like a Cliff Notes. It's 30 pages. And it was to help me navigate what happened and to put it on paper so that I could, I guess, move forward with a clear mind without holding that information still in my head. It helped me process it. And this by no means is like a super professional book or anything. I'm just a very classic stay-at-home mom and wife who just since I was a kid experienced things and did my best to navigate that as I got older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do have what I was going to say, because you said you don't know where to start. I have just the contents, the contents and each chapter. And I think that that's a really good rubric for me to just be like, okay, this is what happened.
Right. And I would just say that it is, for any experiencers watching this, it is a good thing to do, because what happens is that you start to have experiences you might not be right away able to tell anyone, especially, if you're isolated, which, many experiences are for various reasons. And then you begin to have more and more experiences, and it starts to get really confusing and jumbled because you're trying to think, how can I explain this to someone? That it's important that you've got to tell this story at some point, and time keeps rolling on, and, the experiences can build up, and you do kind of, it is worthwhile to set about in whatever, to whatever degree you can, kind of starting to establish that and get it on paper, and that will really help you when you do need to, tell about your experiences, you'll have it more organized in your head,
Yeah, that's what I like about it, is that you can write it down and you don't have to have anything validated. You can just say, this was my experience. And you don't have to know what XYZ was or explain it all. You don't have to really nail it in. You can just say, this is how I experienced it, this is how I interpreted it, and just let it go.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
And you can also, because I did not do this actually, I did write some articles, including some aspects of my experience on in5d.com, but for the most part, I didn't write about my experiences. And it's funny that even if you have really extraordinary experiences, they just become the norm, and just like any other memory, you can forget about them. Even something really crazy, that happened to you.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of stuff crazy happening to you, all the time, that stuff can just get lost in memory. And
Mhm.
I have things like that where I suddenly realize that, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about, this huge, event. So anyway, it's good to write down your experiences. Good advice for the experiencer. But anyway, let's dive into it.
Sure.
And let's start at the beginning. I don't know if, I guess
Do
we'll
you
go
want,
by contents.
do you want me to jog your memory? Because the first chapter is Flame Orange Sky when I was 5. And I just have like contents here.
Yeah, let's go into the dreams.
Okay.
And
So when I was 5, the first dream I ever had that I remember, I probably had more, but you don't remember things. Sometimes people don't remember things when they're 2, 3, 4. And honestly, it's kind of a vague, I feel like I was 5. So I don't even have like the exact time nailed down. I know the bed I was sleeping in. I was on the top bunk of a bunk bed. And at that time I was living in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, actually super close to a Native American, where it used to be Native American territory. So a big forest in the back, all that stuff. Whether that's relevant or not, I don't know. But my first dream that I remember clearly was the most lucid dream ever for a child. I was standing in a desert looking up at the sky, and there was just this vast yin yang made of the blaze orange sky, like the blazest of orange. And I was kind of like, I was in such shock and awe at the color and the immense feeling of that yin yang, like it was a message, but I was so young that there's no way that I would have been able to understand like that energy of that dream until much later in life.
did you even recognize the yin yang? Had you
No.
seen a yin yang before? So that was entirely new. Okay.
Yeah, not even a little bit.
And when you
Not
say
even.
shock, was there, because I know there is some fearful element, but right at the beginning, was
Mhm.
it just shock, or was there some fear in that?
I would say that the overall feeling of it was, number one, essential, like immediate paralysis is just like you're just there and you're being given a vibe or an energy and you can't move. And then once I realized that I was just staring at it, right after that, I was overcome with a huge amount of fear, like just a huge amount of fear, because I felt like something was coming for me. So I started booking it in the dream to a shack that was in the desert. I also didn't know there was a shack there. I just started running, and then like the shack appeared. And old wood, ran to the shack, went in, slammed the door, because this is just fight or flight now. I went from a moment of I was just there and there was an energy with that. And then I went to pure fight or flight and went to flight. I ran to the shack, and the symbolism in the dream, I don't interpret certain things, especially because I was so young. I ran into the shack, slammed the door, and there was an old rocking chair. Mind you, I've never seen this setting in my life at all, like in my whole adult life too. And there was a rocking chair in front of a big, giant window. No panes or anything, just like a bay window, but there was no panes or anything. I dove under the chair and I went into the fetal position, like hugging my knees, just scared. And then a monster, which I would be closest described as a werewolf or something, jumped through the glass window over the rocking chair. My dad and my little sister were in the kitchen area because I was in the living room under. And this shack was like, it was like 2 rooms, and I think in the background there was like maybe 2 bedrooms. But my dad was in the kitchen. My little sister it was the kitchen, step, living room. And my little sister was like right on that little ledge of the kitchen living room. And I dove under the chair, went into the fetal position, monster jumped through. My dad grabbed a gun, shot the monster, and it leaked blue blood on the floor right in front of me. And then I woke up. And that was like the first dream I ever had. Like that was hands down the first dream that I fully remembered.
But to emphasize for the viewers, so this is not at all like a normal dream in terms of its quality, right? I think you described it in the book, and I found it an interesting descriptor, like crystalline. Like this was vivid, or would you say extremely vivid? Like
it was extremely vivid. I would say that if I really had to be completely honest, and I don't, in my cliff notes I only put the facts of what I experienced in the book in vivid detail. But if I went to now I'm about to be 35. If I went to my 35 adult self and said what I truly think this is the entire step is symbolism.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it is a message. And I want to get into the meaning.
Mm-hmm.
But firstly, so in terms of vividness, compared to real life, how would you compare it to real life? Not as vivid as real life, like a step down from real, like much more vivid than a regular dream, but not as vivid as real life, or like real life, or how would you gauge?
I would actually say it was like, so a real life there's a lot more going on. In this dream, it was like concentrated. It was a concentrated version of real life. So like you don't walk into your living room and feel that your couch is a message. Every single point of this dream felt like a pure essence of message or energy.
Okay, I didn't quite grasp that at first. So even as a 5-year-old,
Yeah.
you were aware and sensing that there was meaning, there was a deeper meaning to all of the elements of this. And were you completely convinced that this was a real event? I'm sure at 5 years old, you probably weren't having lucid, or did you have some sense that this was symbolic even? I mean, I know you understood
I don't think that when I had that dream, I don't think that I woke up and acknowledged the dream, because there's this weird, when you're very young, there's this weird place that you're in where you're seeing everything as normal because you're seeing everything for the first time. So like you wake up at 5 and you're like, oh, now this person's making a new food. You know, you're experiencing everything so early that I didn't see this as out of the norm. I just saw this as like, everybody gets this. And I just saw it as a scary dream. That's it.
Mhm.
I had a bad dream. That's it.
So as far as the meaning, um, now I feel like, to me, so Rich Benjamin, a viewer asked, what is a yin yang? So yin yang, basically, I wish I had one right in front of me, or that I
So
could easily bring up.
I know it. The yin yang is a symbol of balance, and it is a symbol of light and dark. So it's pretty much just explains that for every yin, there's a yang. So you could sum it up to, for sadness, there's happiness. For dark, there's light. For a bad day, had a bad day, there's good days. For evil, there's divine. Like, everything can be summed up to it. For hard, and it can go to as simple as, for hard, there's soft. And that is super true.
And then you went on, after seeing this yin yang, to experiencing a very kind of fear-based kind of scenario, where there's something pursuing you.
Yeah.
Which might, I don't know, what do you think, represent the dark, or I'm getting the feeling that, I know we're going to get into this, but you went on, not too long into childhood, you went on to have some really kind of adverse experiences. You went on to have major adversity. I almost feel like the symbolism of the yin yang maybe was meant to convey the message to you of duality, that the negative polarity is designful. It's a feature and not a bug, and to maybe somehow impact upon you that framing for when you were to go on and have the adverse experiences. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's the feeling that I got about. But what do you think, as far as the final analysis of what you think it means relative to your life? And
I think the beauty of how I wrote this, being that I didn't have judgment, is the most important part. So I wouldn't go to, because we'll come to a conclusion of what I think everything meant from chapter 1 to later in life. But I don't think that there necessarily is a concrete meaning to what that meant. But I do think by the time I hit adulthood, I understand it more. So I'm going to, because I feel like that's fair for the first dream. And I think we'll come right back to that at the end. And I think that's important, because I think that there are certain things that for me, there's been certain things that I've been given spiritually at certain times. And by the end, it all makes sense. But for me personally, because I think that people with different supernatural experiences, and I actually, sometimes I like the term supernatural even more than paranormal, because it's natural, but elevated, or even the opposite of elevated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Paranormal is such a whole spectrum. And I feel like supernatural can actually be up, or it can be down of the natural. The natural is the middle. Gotcha. And I personally feel like there's a lower natural and a higher natural, but they shouldn't, and supernatural encompasses the entire thing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's a level of degree for the energy.
Gotcha. Now, did you go on, let's just stay on dreams a little bit. Did you go on to have any other dreams that were on par with this, that had this kind of similar intensity? and meaning to it, or was this kind of a one-off thing? Did this stand alone? No. So you had many other
That was
dreams?
just the first one, and I would say that I continued probably until today to have those dreams. It doesn't mean that it's every night, but it's a lot. It's a lot, at least once a week my whole life.
And how did you feel like those dreams and this dream that we've just covered here, how did you feel like they've impacted your consciousness?
It's kind of weird because they have given me knowledge that my consciousness when I'm awake, I don't have access to like necessarily that type of information. So when I get these dreams, or when I've gotten these dreams, they aid me in some way, depending on how I am.
In a
Or
practice,
in a dark place, I get attacked, I guess.
now when you say they aid you, do you mean in a practical sense or in an emotional sense? Or is there any sort of, some people do get practical information in dreams, about a particular problem, or even something mundane,
Never practical.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. Entirely for processing energies that I experience during the waking hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and do you want to explain any other dreams, or do you want to move on to the next part that you want to discuss?
I think that I still think it'll come back in a roundabout way. But so the next part was that the next chapter is 2. It goes from 1 to 12. And I'm just using this as a rubric again to help me organize my information. The next chapter is Strange Kid. And when I was about 8, I had a difficult time with existing among the world I was supposed to, which would be, so 8 years old is like 3rd grade. I had a difficult time existing in that world with the fact that I saw the world differently. I saw it off energy and not the way that everybody else did. And it was really hard because I would have temper tantrums saying human beings were meant for more than this, or why can I fly in my dreams? Because all of my dreams were lucid. That's why I say that I've had dreams my whole life. Or I would say, why can I fly in my dreams and not in real life? Like it was tough for me to process because my dreams were so
Free.
pure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for the flying one, it was pure. But I also had like other ones teaching me like these weird energetic things that nobody else seemed to utilize in normal, I don't know, like what would you call it? Like casual life, earthly life, common sense kind of thing. I had like just this other perspective. And I would say fly in a dream. And this is why it's Strange Kid, is because I would like fly in a dream and I'd wake up and I was just free. I was just free of everything. I was like pure essence. I'd now compare it to like astral travel. I just was free of like the concreteness of the world. And I would have to wake up and eat breakfast, go to school, boom, boom, boom. And I didn't get why nobody else could relate at all. Like I didn't get why was I experiencing this and nobody talked about it. So that was really hard for me to just ignore this like beauty that I would also see and then wake up and everything was just void of it. That was really difficult for me. So that's the strange kid one.
Yeah, I think with most people, dreams are kind of just very fragmentary, and aren't so much of a core part of your life,
Mhm.
and that's why, most people don't maybe struggle with the contrast, like I had dreams when I was younger, where I would fly, but I wouldn't really struggle with, the realization upon waking, that I could no longer fly, it's just
Mhm.
how,
Can I ask you why?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's in part because the memory of dreams are so fleeting,
Mhm.
and I think that this is, true for the average person. You wake up and you have like a fragment of one dream left, that you
Mhm.
experience. And I certainly did, and I think everybody does, have a feeling of, kind of being let down and almost feeling like a little bit of a drop coming into the real world from the dream world,
Yep.
especially if it was an exciting dream or there was, something going on, or, there's lots of, you know, interesting dreams like that where you come into the waking world and you're like, oh, that sucks. That was really cool. What was going
Yep. For
on.
sure.
But I think this is your sort of the contrast that you're experiencing is on another level. And I think it's because you're now, what would you say is your typical memory recall of dreams at this time? Are you remembering a lot of your dreams and having, very good conscious recall? So maybe
Yeah.
it's much more a part of your consciousness, your waking consciousness, your dream life than a
Mhm.
normal person. And that's maybe why, you're struggling with the sort of contrast between the two.
Right. I think what it was, and it'll get into this, but I think what it was that I thought they were important and everybody around me saw it as just a dream. But for me, it felt important. Like I have to remember.
Mm-hmm. Every dream or most dreams you felt like that,
I don't feel like that with every dream. Absolutely not. I
uh-huh.
think that right now I have dreams, and I think that some are just an interpretation of a day. Because you can have like, you're around someone pretty sketchy and you had a dream where there was something sketchy. Like
Mhm.
if you nowadays, if I go based, like if I really analyze my dream, I can differentiate what was authentic from what I did that day and what was something completely unrelated where it helped me to grow.
Mhm. I see. I had a question and I just lost it.
Hmm.
Um, did you ever have any dreams where you were encountering intelligences which seem not like dream characters, but real consciousnesses that communicated things to you? Do you feel like you were having any dreams like that during this period?
During that period, I would say that it was probably of the utmost importance. So I would say that during these dreams of like flying and being free, it was almost like an escapism from the harsh realities that were around me, like abuses.
Hmm. But you don't recall running into entities that seemed like they were impersonal, that seemed like they had a mind that was separate from your own, that wasn't like, a dream character, a manifestation of your own consciousness, but something else that was penetrating your dreams or teaching you something, or putting you through, some people actually, experience like training, classes and stuff,
Not
when
yet.
they're a child.
So I would say that I was given things if because I do think that I had what you're speaking of. But I also think that I was dealt with, like, this is kind of how it feels, is I was dealt with on a very gentle level for the amount of trauma, because my childhood was really brutal, and I didn't go fully into that with the book because it's one, it's cliff notes, and two, you can experience trauma, but you don't necessarily have to dissect how bad it is to, or like say direct, this is what happened, and how dark it is. The details don't necessarily matter because there is a point that it feels like my real life had a lot of dark evil. And I really think that the, say, flying dreams, it was almost like a gift. Because had I not had that,
like a respite from the suffering going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think that that was in a sense, training, because I definitely did not have a lot of freedom, especially when you compare it to the amount, like you've had a flying dream, when you compare certain things to the amount of freedom in a flying dream for lucid dreamers, that's a total respite and gift.
Mm-hmm.
So I would wake up and go right back into the amount of darkness.
Now, do you want to go into any of the darkness, or do you want to skip over that?
Like the abuse?
Yeah.
So the about abuse, which I think is important, especially when you're talking about supernatural things. It was definitely from the age of 2 years old to 10 or 12 was physical, being forced to drink from a toilet, mental. If I had any sense of identity, it would be ripped away. Nope, you're worthless. Nope, you're terrible. One time I was asked by the abuser, who was same age as me, living in my house. They said, if there was a dog in the street, and this is like how much I wasn't allowed to have an identity. If there was a dog in the street and there was a car coming, would you go save it? Me. Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely go save it. Them. No, you wouldn't. You couldn't do it. You're terrible. Same thing. Drink from the toilet. No, I don't want to drink from the toilet. I knew you wouldn't. You can never do anything right. And it was like a constant mental abuse down to all the way to, inappropriate things. And this was a pretty constant thing for me. But the entire time, I had like this inner voice that told me, do your best. Remember who you are and you'll be okay. Keep your positive intentions. So even when my light was just like so diminished in those moments, something kept me to remain alive and remember who I was.
And do you think that this was an inner voice in the typical sense that people say inner voice, like was it self, or do you think that this in hindsight could have been something communicating to you from an external source, another
it's a really weird concept to talk about, because there are people who have had experiences like me and that shapes them entirely. And for some reason, I was never a victim to it. I had like a resilience, and the only thing I can think of is that I had help.
Mm-hmm. And was there throughout this period ever any anomalous things that happened in terms of help, or like freak accidents, or instances where you got really lucky, like this bad thing could have happened, but because
Yeah.
of like did you have stuff like that happen at all?
Yeah, by teenhood, I had never told anybody about these abuses from the age of like 2 to 12 or so. The person got kicked out of my house because my mom had like kind of like not like her own awakening. She was very work focused and busy. And even if I did say something, she wouldn't have had the capacity to understand me at all, I guess. So by the time I was like 12 and that person was no longer living there, I started finding more of myself, but I also had been never more lost because I had been controlled from the age of 2 to 12. I wasn't allowed to have an identity. So when I was about 12 and the person moved out and I started trying to find more of myself, let's see here. Okay. So started trying to find more of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Everything crumbled because I had been so used to being controlled that, and also never expressing myself either because I just didn't have a lot of ability to.
And
So
so you
once
said,
I had the space to express myself,
Mhm.
I had no idea how. It was almost like being controlled took up all that free time for me to have free thinking.
I have to say, before we move beyond this chapter,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of control, like just the degree to which this person was
Mm-hmm.
harassing you seems strange to me. It Do you get the sense that there was anything unnatural about it, or anything, like in the grand scheme of things, as far as,
100%.
like,
And
because
I don't even actually, I've forgiven the person, not to their face, but I have spiritually and emotionally completely forgiven the person. I went through a lot of therapy, and I really think that they were in a darker place than me almost. I I think that there was absolutely like there was a hollowness in the eyes. There was when they would do this, there was a hollowness in the eyes. There was no care. I mean, I was forced to abuse animals on their behalf.
yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, I
Hmm.
heard about the thing about you're being forced to abuse animals
Yeah.
and all these things, and it's almost starting to sound to me almost like mind control programming, or just something very similar to it, like at least in terms of its impact and the implications of it, like, and this had to kind of, in some sense, serve that purpose, or at least as far as conditioning you,
Hmm.
not that it was successful. And I know you described that you had
I
a kind of
mean,
surprising resilience.
symbolically, if you go that way, it was almost like I was the yin to that yang,
Yeah.
and it was just trying to destroy me, and I didn't let it.
So yeah, it just gave me the idea, and I'm just going to toss this out here, and we don't
Mhm.
have to delve into this much. That that perhaps there was an attachment in this person.
Mhm.
They had an agenda, uh,
Mhm.
and they were carrying out that agenda, and it was maybe not.
I will say I did see them again in around the age of 20 or so, and they were getting married, so I was supposed to be at the wedding just to be there, nothing special necessarily. But they absolutely did take me aside and whisper in my ear, like, the reason I'm marrying this person is going to be like kind of X-rated, but they said because she's amazing in bed, and they literally whispered it in my ear. I mean, the amount of like still, and when that person was in my presence, it was like trying to puppeteer my energy, and I just wasn't allowed to be okay in that person's presence. Later, I learned and grew and like healed from that, but like definitely when you look back on it, it's very messed up. It just is. It's just really messed up.
Yeah. And
But I would agree with you though.
But I should say though that probably though in the grander scheme of things that served, do you think maybe even a positive purpose, or that you were given the yang, and there is a great spiritual benefit to experiencing that contrast between light and dark, and understanding and comprehending that.
I would say that I was born with a purpose, is what it would really come down to, and that I was helped by things to believe in myself. Like, I guess, like, if you really sum it up, I think I was helped to believe in myself, and that every single dark thing that I went through, because that's not the only one. But I would definitely say that I went through certain things ready for it almost in life. Like, if you go to soul contracts, I think that I was, like, it kind of felt like I kind of signed up for it, and I knew that I would be strong enough to get through it. And that if I was, it could help other people.
Right. Now, what about disassociation? Do you feel like these experiences facilitated a learned skill of disassociation at all?
So I had disassociation, I want to say probably until after the chapter that talks about when I started getting what would seem like possessed, but I wasn't possessed. It was something eating at me, kind of. I hadn't spoken about the abuse. I was about 14 years old. I was in high school freshman year, and I started dying. My bedroom got moved to the basement, which should have been a really awesome place, honestly. The basement was fantastic. This is 2004.
Okay.
Projector screen TV. I was in dance, and I had these awesome 3 mirrors to practice all my dance moves. I got to paint it whatever color I wanted. And what happened was I just slowly started being attacked in my sleep. And it started in my sleep.
What were you perceiving as far as
the attack?
Yeah.
The number one thing was that I would lay down, I'd fall asleep. A lot of times dreams were solace. But what happened was my dream started morphing. And I would get creatures opening up the ceiling, usually right above my bed. So like I was in the dream state, but it was the exact same room. And that is not typical for my dreams. There usually is a lot of metaphor, there's a lot of symbolism, or it's a total escape or whatever. So they would open the ceiling above my bed and crawl out, and they were gray, lanky beings with like very like scary, more chompy mouths.
With teeth.
And
Sharp teeth.
yeah, sharp teeth. And this is where I'm curious of your perspective, because I think that other things are going on and I've never delved into it because I just know my story and I am very untouched or educated by what things are. I just so know my story. So it was chompy teeth, lanky, opening the ceiling, and they would drag me out of bed and up the stairs. And I would claw at the ground, unable to stop them at all. It was, I mean, they were insanely powerful. They had complete control over me to the point that you could claw as much as you want, but like you're so powerless. You have no power. And that's how it started. And
Now,
I started slowly just losing sleep entirely out of fear.
were these negative characters in your dreams recurring? Like you would have
Same thing every time.
Okay, so that's
Exact same thing every time.
Certainly a sign that something's unusual here, because
and then in my waking hours, I started getting paranoid and depleted.
Now we can circle back around to some of the elements of this dream, but whenever I read, because you're wanting to get my perspective on this real quick, whenever I read about this period of your life, and you mentioned how you started to become afraid to go to sleep, and started to kind of go downhill, and many of the elements to me seemed a little bit like PAS, post-abduction syndrome, where because of the trauma from abductions, and we're going to get into, that experience, you start to have like this fear association to things. Now I know, like, it's possibly largely due to the fact that, you're having these nightmares, and that's why, that's the source of the fear. But you do have this situation with post-abduction syndrome, people who have that, where all of a sudden they can't stay in their room, and they might not remember the abduction, but they just inexplicably all of a sudden have this discomfort with the environment that they're in,
Yeah, the amount of paranoia was unbelievable.
Yeah. And wherever that environment may be, like if the person was abducted on some back road near their house in their vehicle, they start to become afraid of that back road. They don't know why, oftentimes they don't have any conscious recollection of the abduction, but
Right.
they start to avoid that road, and they have a fear of it, an inexplicable fear of it for whatever reason. And that's kind of what jumped out at me at first. I thought PAS, and maybe we'll just say a little bit about PAS just for the viewer. So PAS is a little bit like PTSD, except that like there's a multiplicity of psychological symptoms, except that in the case of PAS, there's external forces that suppress the memories, the ETs, it seems, anyway, in a lot of cases, like there's some technological or psionic suppression of the memories. It's not like in PTSD cases, the person's own psyche, that are.
Yep. Yeah, I've had actually PTSD. I lost a house in a house fire, but that's where I started getting into meditation and yoga.
Okay, yeah.
But that's totally different. Like the PTSD actually was very different than this 14-year-old experience.
Yeah. Did you start to have a lot of anxiety too at the time of this?
I mean, anxiety is almost putting it mildly.
But not just during the nights. Like, would you have anxiety throughout the day as well?
Yep. So I started off having anxiety about going to bed, But the biggest point is just that it's so inexplicable. So you start changing and you don't know why. And other people see you changing. And it's kind of like you're slightly in a different reality, like not a totally different reality to the point where, you know, like you're whatever, but for me, it was a slow process. But for some other people, like the process that I went through in 6 months for them, they'd be like, that's a super fast process. But for me, it felt so slow. Like every hour of the day felt like a year. And I would say I kind of like went back to feeling like a puppet. And I want to tell you this is that when I did go to because I did go to a psychiatrist, horse therapy, probably psychologist, then psychiatrist, then horse therapy. Because horse therapy was where my mom was getting desperate. And she's also busy. She's a surgical nurse and she was working a lot. And she always just wanted me to be normal. Mm-hmm. And I just wasn't. So I started, when I went to psychiatry, they were like, this is very classic of somebody who has been inappropriately abused. And I didn't disagree with him, but I also didn't yet tell anybody that how I had been abused at all, really. So he was right. He was totally right.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see now as an adult is I don't think that this was a manifestation just in my mind from that abuse. I think it actually left like gaps in my pure energy or like who I was as a person to where I was vulnerable to other things. I think it was almost like a reflection to where I was that traumatized and I was vulnerable then to like energies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems
So I get where a psychiatrist would say, this is because, this is in her mind because this happened to her. But I also think that this was actually, it opened me up to not being entirely me, especially unhealed and holding this in. It was almost like a magnet for other things of that same energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably likely. Before we move past this experience, if we could just comb through it a little bit more, because given what we're eventually going to talk about, you know, the possible abduction experience, I think we want to just maybe hone in on this a little more closely to see if there wasn't anything regarding like the sort of fears and anxieties that were going on then. Were you doing anything weird as far as like people with PAS they'll make sure that their windows are, they'll have this habit of like making sure their windows are locked, like closing.
I would actually hyper focus on my skin, and I thought I looked like a monster, and I thought that my eyes showed evil. I when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw myself disappearing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I saw myself as being gone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, it sounds like the effects of whatever, and we're going to talk about this, I think, subsequently. Whatever entity attachment that you had going on, you know, they're influencing your thought processes, and that's probably stemming from them. Did you ever wake up feeling shaky or nervous, or wake up with the feeling like something happened, but you weren't aware, anything like that, you know, like waking up feeling?
I didn't. I would say that in that aspect, I felt like I was fully aware. I just didn't have the words to describe it. So when I would wake up, which I think is kind of like a primal instinct to protect yourself, I would wake up and I would be under my blanket, and I saw my blanket as a protective barrier, and I would just stay under there for hours, waiting until my mom said, time to get up for school. I would just stay under it, and the entire time I would feel like outside of that blanket, I was just being stared at or waiting to be attacked. Like that blanket was the only thing that kept me from seeing what was truly there, which I couldn't even tell you if that's true or not because I never took it off. But if I fell asleep, I'd be attacked because like immediately, like literally immediately. Fall asleep, boom, attack. And I was just caught. Every like little place of darkness in the room, and this would be the paranoia where you're talking about like the doors and stuff like that. I mean, it was just it felt like you're just being preyed upon from every angle of the atmosphere.
Now you're 14, so you're a bit older. And are you thinking that what you're afraid of is purely the nightmares, or are you half thinking that there is some real physical threat, or is there some part of you
Physical, absolutely physical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had zero evidence of that, but I also knew nothing about aliens. I knew nothing about demons. I didn't know any of that. This was purely my experience. I had zero knowledge of anything, and this was just what I was experiencing.
Yeah. People that have PAS, it's been said of them that the greatest, the most troublesome forms of PAS are when the abductee has no memories and they're completely unaware of everything that is going on. And I think that's just
the only memory would be that of what was in my dream of being dragged up the stairs.
Yeah.
Which would have been every night at that point.
And the appearance of those entities in the dream, did they resemble at all anything in hindsight, or was there anything? Because obviously that is all, and this is maybe an interesting direction to go into. That is all designful, that's being crafted by something, and it's for effect,
right. And that's part of what I think is that, like, as scary as whatever it was, which we'll get to, but whatever it was, they had to have you as scared as you could possibly get, to the point that you could die. I mean, I just feel like it was like, as their goal was to take your life essence.
Okay. And that's maybe what was going on, or maybe part of what was going on. That there could always be other things, going on. That can be abductions.
I just want to tell the viewers that all of this comes to a really beautiful place. So, like, while Jim and I are talking about this right now, this comes back to a very different perspective.
Okay, so yeah, let's go to the next thing. What happens after this period?
After this period, so I got to the darkest of dark, and I was hallucinating in school. I wasn't going to school very often because they couldn't get me to physically walk into the school. I was sickly and pale. I mean, you're talking hands down, like 70s, 80s psych ward individual. But that didn't so much exist in the early 2000s. It was, like I said, it was 2004. So that didn't so much exist. And my mom's still just like, just be good. And she was also just watching me. I mean, I went to the psychiatrist, they put me on Zoloft. It got 1,000 times worse because I don't necessarily think that this was a chemical imbalance issue. And most medications are for psychological imbalances, and they help a lot of people. I'm not against that, but I didn't have one necessarily. So I got to the darkest of dark. I was not really going to school. I was having a pretty hard time. When I would walk down the hallway, I was hallucinating at this point, which I accredit sleep deprivation along with whatever was attacking me for the sleep deprivation, paired with what I was seeing in my dreams. And it just kind of all started meshing together because I was so sleep deprived and just suffering. So this is where it gets slightly more interesting. So the psychiatrist said that this was a common thing with people who had XYZ abuses. One of my aunts said, "Hey, I have this shaman friend. You should just try taking her there." And my mom was like, "Yeah, let's go." Because there was nothing left. I mean, I wasn't even suicidal. Like, I was just a shell of a human being. And I went to the shaman, and I remember the car ride there. My head was against the passenger window, and I remember seeing myself in the passenger mirror of the car. And I was hollow. Like I told you how I would see my eyes in the mirror, and I couldn't look at my own eyes because I just didn't recognize it. At this point in time that I went to the shaman, this was it. I had a sliver of anything left. And I was pale. I was so underweight, I could hardly eat. Went to the shaman. She said, "Nice to meet you. Come in." The way that I perceive it is I just walked in expecting nothing. I had no hope anymore. She laid me down. She had small talk. I literally don't even remember what it is because I just was existing. Like, it took enough for me to stand at this point. She had me lay down on the table, like the massage therapist table, with hot rocks under my back. And she put say 2 fingers on my right hip. She was standing on my right and 2 on my forehead. And she went like this, and I'm laying here, and there was music and incense, and the rocks were warm. And for the first time, I completely relaxed in months. I couldn't relax in my bed. I couldn't relax in my home. I couldn't relax anywhere. I didn't even know how. And for the first time, I was like, and then next thing you know, I feel like I'm floating above my body. Like, I feel like I separated.
Maybe you are having an OBE.
Yeah. And I was I would say I was about 2.5 to 3 feet, more like 2.5 above my body. And I said I swear to God, I said in my head, it could have been with my mouth. Regardless, I didn't care. I said, "Are you doing that?" And she said, "Nope, I just have my 2 fingers or my 2 hands here. That's it." That's what she said. And I felt my physical body, I was 2.5 feet above it in my perspective, but I felt my physical body just vibrating. Did that for a while. I'm guessing maybe a half hour. She was like, "Okay, now you can get up." Came back to, sat up. and I felt whole. And she said,
Describe whole. What do you mean by whole?
I was back. Like, I was back. I could feel my fingertips. The way that I had been the last 6 months was completely just disconnecting from being present. I was just losing presence in my body. I mean, you can go to the fridge and open the fridge and you're looking for food. I was just disappearing. Like, it sounds so weird, but like I didn't feel. And even when I would like look in my eyes, like I like wasn't there. It was weird. It was like I was a husk.
That's interesting.
And then I was whole. Did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So then I was whole, and she said what you had was called a parasitic entity. And I was like, I don't care what it was called. I was baffled. I mean, I sat there out of like respect for her, and I heard her out, but she said what you had was called a parasitic entity. And I'm just like, fantastic. Great. And she said it wasn't the worst one that she's seen, but it was really bad. And I was like, all right, which blew my mind, because I'm like, you've seen others? Like, you've seen others? So she said that there was essentially an energetic presence that was siphoning my life force. It completely made sense to me. And from that day forward, everything was gone. From the car ride home, I literally was like, that worked.
Now, like, everything is gone. Like, you're just totally restored.
I mean, I still had to eat.
Of that entity.
I had to have a burger or fries. Yeah. And feel sunlight. But I was back. And like, it would be slow. And I didn't understand what just happened, but I was fully accepting of the fact that this is my life. And I had never really been like other people to that point. So,
yeah. So it's just really extraordinary the degree to which all of your physical, psychological, and just life problems in general can potentially vanish just with the removal of an entity attachment. Yeah, you would have never thought that would be the case, that it was just solely that, and you just remove that and then just everything just falls into place again. But it really can be a situation like that, where it's just entirely everything, that entity is doing to you and draining your life force energy. Do you think that the draining of your life force energy was like the fundamental thing that was making you unwell? Or do you think that it was also, in addition to sort of draining your life force energy, do you think that it was at work, projecting negative, do you think that maybe a lot of the negative thoughts you were having about yourself, were coming from it?
What's wild? I see exactly what you're saying. And what's wild is that I still had not told anybody about any of the traumas. So I still had those. She did that. I was 14. I was better. I actually didn't even come out with the traumas until I was 19. So they're essentially like, there probably was a correlation to like that energy being drawn to me. But I did start from that point on, when I had a night terror and I had something attack me, theoretically, in a dream, I kind of would like put my foot down and I'd be like, not again. But I still had the choice. Like I still had the trauma. But at this point in time, I said, absolutely not. Can't touch me. And later on, I went to therapy for my traumas based on the fact that I was having bad boyfriends because I just didn't know, I guess, like my real world worth because of what I was raised with. But there was, from that point on, there really wasn't an energy that could affect me. I was able to see it. Earthly behaviors of somebody being mean, I still had a point where I had to overcome the earthly behavior to like, hey, I can make earthly boundaries, but I made spiritual boundaries far before I made like earthly behavior boundaries.
Now, when did the psychic abilities come online? Is that the next part of this?
Yeah, so I started learning empathy all over again because I think I was born with empathy, but I had to shut it off while being abused because it's very difficult at a super young age to understand the depth of like if somebody's doing an atrocious act. Empathy is a very strong thing, and to be abused, you don't necessarily relate to the abuser, if that makes sense. Because empathy is like you really like are able to feel exactly what somebody else is feeling.
Yeah.
So you shut that off to a point when you're being abused because you just that's not something you want to relate to, and if you do, that's a whole different ball game. I super never wanted to get that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, empathy is not quite that. Empathy is like that for some people who are really empathic, where you're feeling exactly what the other person is feeling. I feel like most people though are feeling, some residue maybe of that. Like they're feeling, like maybe not exactly as sad and depressed as the person in front of them, but they're getting
Right. So
of that.
this is where I stepped into empathy by choice. And I think that that's kind of a fascinating topic. To say that you can learn empathy is kind of weird. I do think that the brain is more malleable from childhood to teen years. I think there are things you can learn far easier than when you're an adult.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
at this point in time, I would say I was about 16 and I realized that somebody was telling me that they broke their leg. And I realized I was like, I don't care. Not because I don't want to care. I just like was having the conversation because that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was going to school, I was having the conversation. I also have to go to math class because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I realized like I don't get it. And I was like, I don't want to be that way. And I just made like this conscious choice about 16. And I started, and again, for some reason in my life, I experienced things and I learned things, but I never had the thing where other people are like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I never abided by that. So I was like, I want to understand everything somebody says to me always. So when somebody would say, I had Cheerios for breakfast, I would start practicing. I know exactly what that's like. I'm going to imagine the spoon and the milk and the cold and the Cheerio. And I started practicing that. And as I did that, it grew very quickly, like ridiculously quickly. It just cracked open. And to the point where I was able to fully understand other people's experiences that I had not experienced.
Yeah, that's really interesting. This is kind of the first time I've ever heard of something quite like this. Like you activated
But energy was my
through kind of
thing,
going through the motion.
so I kind of just embraced like, hey, I'm gonna start using this again, type of thing. And I just started feeling the energy and letting it work again.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like I wonder, like if that could be, some kind of useful spiritual practice, for some people, like, like put yourself in that is that how you would go about this? You know, you put yourself
Small
in that,
things, very small
really,
things.
really imagine, you know, like what
Yeah.
it's to have cancer or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
And then you're saying with you, like something really changed quickly, you know, in
Mhm.
terms of
Yeah, it just
your
escalated.
empathic abilities, you know,
Mhm.
like it really, you know, switched on then. That's very interesting.
I think I had it from when I was younger because all this is for me at this point, now as an adult looking back, it's energy translation. So
What do you mean by that?
I was already doing that from a young age with, like, say, the first dream. By no means had I really known what a werewolf was. No clue what blue blood means. The yin yang had an energetic message. The fear, like everything was symbolic. But if you just ignore what I saw in the dream, every single thing was a message. If you just go based on the energy of the dream, it was part 1, part 2, part 3. It was the yin yang telling me there is a balance and you're being conveyed this message as the balance. Part 2 was the fear, being chased, running. Part 3 was my dad having courage, destroying the bad energy, and then it was better. What I saw was not necessarily the important part. Like, I don't think that the yin yang was super relevant because I felt the meaning of the yin yang far stronger than what I saw in the sky, if that makes sense. And when I look at my dreams now, I see a lot of things. I always have. So, for example, I recently, a couple months back, had a dream of I was in an ocean. Everything was just the deepest blue. I can pretty much have any power that I want in a dream, but I don't always have control over being like, oh, now I want to fly, and I can just fly. There's things that are given in my dream. I just don't really try to control these things because I trust the process, basically. And in this dream, I was in the ocean and there was this giant blue whale. I mean, immense, like mind-blowing immense. Same shock and awe, paralysis type situation, but still trusting the process, so there was no fear. The whale swam up. Telepathically to the whale, I said, how many more are there? I never in my conscious waking awake Heidi would I ask that. Like, but I knew what I meant. I meant, like, how many more people are, like, experiencing this like me, like things like this. And the whale telepathically said back, and again, the image is not as important as the energy. The whale said back, more than you could ever imagine. And it flashed to the world with all the continents just glowing. Like, it's just like the image, for me, the image it's just energy translation. Where that message came from, what prompted me to ask it, I have no idea. But I exist and things happen as they're supposed to. So there's like this crazy amount of faith I have in my existence where I don't hold animosity, but I also don't hold expectation, but I have a core knowing that it'll be okay. And that's what it's always been.
Before we move on, I just want to say, so that part of yourself that you didn't understand why you asked that. Do you ever think that that in these instances, that's like another compartment of the self, either the higher self or some other, aspect of ourself that we're cut off from, our consciousness, is blocked from. Do you think that could have been like, do you remember feeling different about self in that moment, like, or do you think that sometimes when you're in dreams, maybe you're accessing, or there's other parts of you that are sort of coming online with different memories, maybe? And
I do, and I do, but I think that the part that keeps me so open is not thinking about it. I think that the reason that I have like a connectedness with, say, my higher self, or like this, because people talk about Akashic records, right? I think that would be like a similar vibe, because Akashic records, are they not the records of everything?
Supposedly, yeah, according to Edgar Cayce, it's like the sum totality of all on Earth, I think. I don't know about there might be a greater Akashic records, but I think when people are talking about the Akashic records, they're talking about everything that has happened here, with humanity and
Okay.
all of that.
Okay. I think the higher self is it's a very similar concept, but it's of you. But I think that higher self also is not bound by time. So it can give you insight. So this brings us to my ability to access information, which is not in this book, actually, because this was after I wrote this book, things got cracked more open for me. And I learned that not only can I translate energy, I can transmute it. So I'm able to, I found this out very naturally. There was somebody that was having a hard time, and they had a very like soul question, and I didn't know I could do this. This wasn't a psychic, like I don't have people pay for readings. I don't advertise myself as a medium. I don't advertise myself as anything at all. I just find this naturally in my life. They had like this soul question, like, am I going to be okay? Type of thing. And I've communicated with people who have passed on, which was far more familiar for me, because that's actually, it sounds weird, but it's pretty chill for me. Like communicating with people who have passed on, it's pretty chill. And I wouldn't say I enjoy it or anything, but sometimes it's like, oh, that was a really cool spirit or soul that communicated with me. And there's like a purpose for that.
Relatable. You saying in your experience, they kind of seem relatable,
Yeah, they're really relatable
with them. Yeah.
They're super not dark. They're nothing like, the dark stuff I've been with. But I learned with this person, this was in the last like 3 weeks, that they had that question and I was given an answer. I knew I could do that in the past via meditation, because I'm able to completely shut off my thoughts and just like observe an energy field. I can just shut my thoughts off entirely and observe an energy field. The only thing is I don't practice anything I do. I don't care to, because I have to stay grounded for my 3 kids and my husband who don't have these abilities. And I enjoy very fully relating to other people. And there's a point where if you go too deep into this stuff or practice it, you lose a very real human, authentic connection with the majority of people. And I don't want to lose that. I want to have one foot on the ground and just be open. I'm not reaching for anything ever. So this person had a question, and I felt my stuff kick in, and I was like, whoa, okay, all right, I guess it's happening. Because there's very
What do
physical,
you mean by your stuff kick in? What do you mean by that exactly?
I get physical reactions to when I'm being communicated with by something.
Like tingly feelings or
Yep.
okay.
My fingertips go kind of like numb, and it's like water pouring out of my fingertips. And
Is
I
it a subtle sensation or is it very palpable and
very palpable,
yeah.
extremely. It is unmistakable
Wow.
to when that turns on. And I don't ask for it at all. That's why I like not being a quote unquote medium or a psychic or anything like that. I like not trying. I like just existing and being available without any. That's what allows me to not have ego attached. There's no expectation of myself, and there's no expectations for others of me. I just exist with everyone. And, if I felt like tomorrow working at Walmart, if I felt like tomorrow being a CEO of a company, if I, like, then that's what resonates. But who I am is not with expectation of myself or what others expect of me. I just am. And that's what I've been told that I'm supposed to be.
Interesting. Now, when you were saying you observe an energy field, you're able to stop your thoughts and observe an energy field. What precisely are you perceiving when you're doing that? Where are you perceiving it? And can you describe it? What that looks like?
Well, I've started with focusing in on my breath. So you go, and then out through the mouth. It has to be in through your nose, out through the mouth. And when I breathe in through my nose, I'm bringing in fresh, new, positive. And when I exhale, I'm ridding of anything from, say, my day. That goes out, and I breathe in openness. So I breathe in through the nose, openness, and I exhale like waste from the day that doesn't benefit me. So fresh, clean, everything else out. Then, so for people who start practicing meditation, your thoughts are going to race. It's going to be like, oh, I don't know, literally anything. I had a burger for supper. Oh, my feet are tingly. Oh, I kind of have to cough. Oh, this blanket is a little bit uncomfortable. It's going to be anything. It's going to be like anything from your conscious world.
Yeah,
Is going to like little distractions.
Where we're just constantly being
right
on our consciousness by these thoughts, which kind of come out of nowhere,
Right.
And it's really weird when you start to practice this and try to stop your thoughts, just how almost impossible. Like I cannot stop my thoughts. Like I've been really, for the last, few months, like really trying to train myself, to just to be still. And
I can talk people through this, no problem. Like actually like live, not here, because actually it's terrible for people to like listen to while they're like driving. So say somebody was listening to the podcast driving, you definitely don't want to do it at that point because it's a terrible idea. But
thoughts are so sneaky. They're so, at least even if you're like, you're like at the stage that I am, where like I'm so aware, that a thought is going to just sneak its way in and then take a hold of me. And then I'm just going to be blind for, a moment or two until I realize again, even if I'm like ready, like I'm ready, I'm waiting, my mind is still, like I'm, not thinking. And then, and I think, I should be able to hold it like this. I should be able to just like continue this moment of just I'll have a crystal, like point that I do a single
Sure,
point
yeah.
focus meditation. And then bam, still, like a thought comes in, and not even like one that I'm like verbalizing in my mind, like that's got language to it, but nevertheless a thought. And they're just phantom like, like it's
Mhm.
just possible
Yeah,
to.
it's like a reverberation of the past you. Because
Yeah.
you're trying to be in that moment, and all it is like an echo or a ripple of a point that you had an intention that day,
Yeah.
right? So you had an intention that day, and there's just echoes because you had care in that, and there is nothing wrong with that. But once you start watching that, like that's an echo, or you watch it like you can look at cars passing on a road, and you don't think that's a Ford Focus, that's a red car. Once you can watch cars on a road and not be giving attention to the cars on a road. So once you start watching those thoughts go, like that, like cars on a road, you can watch them all you want. You're not meditating wrong. You're not failing. That's you from the day, like, and that's okay. But once you keep watching them, but just watch them. Don't give attention to every car that passes in that term of your thoughts.
Right. And I would say, the difference between meditation and, maybe lack of meditation in this case is you're noticing the thoughts as thoughts, and not
Mhm.
as self, you're not,
It's like an echo.
the problem, with thoughts is that we're thinking without knowing that we're thinking, without realizing,
It is a tough thing to convey. Like it's easy for me to say, but it is. But that's why meditation's a practice. Like people don't just I meditated today. End of story. It's a practice. It's no different than learning to ride a bike. And once you start riding the bike, you're doing it without thought. And it's the same for meditation. You start watching those. And the first time you find that quiet place, and for you, with what you're saying, yoga would be good because what you're doing is you are moving and it gives yourself a focus, but you focus on your breath. And you're usually with yoga, especially when you start, which is how I got into this, how I got into like finding my like true essence of a being or whatever. After losing the house fire and stuff, I was like, I got a baby, I have a toddler, I don't have anything for just me. I've been through a lot in life. Cool. I never did the poor me thing, but I did have to work on myself. And I got into yoga, and yoga started me off before meditation because it was physically healthy. It helps blood flow go different places. And the entire time, it's with the breath. So like if you do like whatever sun pose or whatever, reach up, inhale, down to the floor, exhale, and it helps you ease into where it's not your thoughts because you're actually like, okay, reach up, inhale, touch the floor, exhale, and you don't have the space for all that stuff to swim around.
See, I do.
And that's where I started getting images and all this crazy stuff in my mind.
So I'm different.
Mhm.
Like I cannot, like, in order for me to still my mind, to the best of my ability, and it's never completely still at any given time. I have to be still. If I'm moving or doing anything, my mind just starts going, and it doesn't matter, especially once something becomes routine. Like maybe if it's the first time you're doing yoga, and you're being shown how to do, the sun salutation.
Yeah.
And, it requires a little bit of focus, but then that becomes routine and your brain, automatically, kind of figures out a shorthand, and it doesn't have to think about it as much.
Have you ever had a
I'll be
guide?
thinking about tons of stuff, while I'm doing meditation
Okay.
against my will.
I think I think it's just tough for some people. And for me, it was same as the empath thing. It was like right there.
I think there's just a lot of different minds, and some minds.
I think for you, it would be key. So like if you say went for a run, I think for you, it would be key to just watch your thoughts without holding judgment to yourself.
That's what I do. Yeah, that's what I do. And
different people have different gifts. So like nobody has to be like me. Like you don't have to be like me. Like you doing, say, meditation doesn't even mean that you would experience what I'm experiencing. Literally your gift in, like, say, a meditative state could be unwinding your thoughts. I have no idea because I'm not doing all my feeling stuff right now. But people have different abilities. This is mine. This is my experience. And when other people shed traumas or distractions or things like that, they're not going to be me.
Yeah.
And everybody's is equally as important. So like yours is you.
Yeah. Let's we got off track a little bit, but I think that's okay. I think this was an interesting kind of honest exchange, and got a little raw, and I think sometimes that's good to have a kind of raw discussion on something, that's important. But let's finish out with your possible abduction experience.
Oh, that one was crazy.
And let's get into
wild. This is probably the biggest one where I am open to other people's interpretation, because this was where I was like, all right, I actually put a boundary down where I was like, that's enough for me, because it was so wild. So my possible abduction experience, I was pretty well versed into meditation, yoga, but still just existing. I went to bed one night, literally no different. Again, I wasn't practicing anything other than the surrender and watching my thoughts and just clearing my mind. That was pretty much it.
Right. No, no feeling of impending doom, as some abductees describe, before. You can tell that there's a different energy. So that's not happening. It just seems like a normal night. Not that completely rules out abduction, but just to be clear. So you're nothing about your state of consciousness in any kind of way. Go to bed.
Where this one leads is not actually my experience that brought me to the thought of abduction. It was the other people in the house and their experience of that night. So I went to bed, immediately went into a dream. There was no intro. Usually with my dreams, there's like a feeling of separation, observing. I would say there's a feeling of observing usually in my dreams, even when I'm like receiving like what I would call a download or education or energetic interpretation. There's a slight like disconnect to where I'm slightly observing. You know what it's like in a dream, where you're not fully there, right?
Yeah.
This one, I was immediately in my car at a stop sign. It wasn't the car I had at the time. It was a car from when I was a teenager. It was a Red Alero. I lived, at the time of this dream, I lived in a house that was a block and a half away from where in the dream, so this is all very in close proximity. So I'm going to say I was immediately in the dream. I was in my red Alero at a stop sign that in real life was a block and a half away from my house. And the sky was again the same orange from when I was 5. The same orange. Like it's unmistakable. Like it's not like a sunset. This is like a stark, deep, blazing orange.
So not just a color. You're saying there's almost more than just a color, or are you saying that it's just very vivid? You know, it's just a very sort of glowing.
Yeah, super glowing, absolutely glowing. Yeah. It took over. It had an energy, and like you can look at the sky, and it's a beautiful sky, but the energy of the blue sky doesn't take over everything else of your surroundings. You know, you still are like, oh, but those trees have energy. The road has energy. My car is tin, or whatever.
Like absorbing. You know,
oh, absolutely.
And entrancing, maybe even. You know, like it just was grabbing your attention, and because of how vivid and intense it was.
Couldn't move again. Couldn't move. At this point in time in the dream, I was sitting in the driver's seat, stopped at a stop sign, but I could not move. It just was there, the exact same as when I was 5. And I didn't make this correlation until years later. Yeah, whatever. So orange sky, sitting in my red Alero, stop sign, in complete shock and awe, paralyzed, couldn't move. I was being like no transition. I was being lifted in a beam. And I was limp. My consciousness was kicked in. Nothing else. I was witnessing myself being lifted up practically.
In the third person perspective?
Yes. And I've never, ever, ever in a dream ever been in third person. Ever. And I told myself, I was like, surrender, surrender. You have to surrender. Like, don't react. And I was like, weird, awkwardly, this would be like what I would consider my communication with higher self type situation, to where it can be like a conversation, not a full conversation. You're just being told something and you're like, oh, okay. So I heard surrender, don't react. Snap again. And I literally remember the limp body feeling. Snap again. I was inside what I was being lifted to. And I did see, oh, I forgot this part. As I was at the stop sign, while I was in awe, I saw a spacecraft slowly go over my car and take up over half of this crazy sky. The city I was in was about 2,500 people. And this spacecraft seemed to be about half that city. So I don't know, like, dimensions.
And silver and metallic.
Huge.
Silver metallic in appearance, or
silver metallic in appearance, with symbols over the entire outer lower rim. And the symbols were slightly embossed.
Say that again. Embossed.
So like if you put your hand over the craft, you could feel the symbol.
Okay. I see. Now, when you say snap in terms of the transition, you mean like it's just one moment and then the next, and it wasn't like,
and it was 3 moments
in a dream, like you're fading out and then you're coming to, and then the scene is different. So it's not like that.
I wasn't able to see transitions. So when I went from the car to the beam, I don't know how I got there. And when I went from the beam to inside of the craft, I don't know how I got there.
But it felt like, because this is important in terms of evaluating, you know, like the reality of this experience. It felt like your consciousness was continuously alert and aware through these transitions. Or was there
car, beam, craft, blackout in between?
So there was a transition, but you just weren't consciously aware of it.
No clue. The consciousness, so my conscious perception was I remember fully the car. I remember fully the beam. I remember when I was on the table, which we'll get to. But there is nothing in between the transition of how I got to each place.
Mm-hmm. At least according to your conscious memory.
Correct. And I've never done hypnosis of.
And that is, hypnosis, okay. And that is typical, especially of that stage of an abduction, as you're being lifted in the beam. There's not with every person, some people actually remember, seeing like an opening and then going through it and then, being undressed and put on a table. But
yeah, I've heard of people, seeing the door open, things like that.
Yeah, but most abductees, there's always a cessation in their conscious awareness, normally around that time, and then they come back to normally when they're on the exam table.
Mm-hmm. And I was on the table. That was the next point. So I was in the beam, told to surrender, don't fight. And I was like, okay. So I did that because I was just good at it, I guess, at this point. Not judging is kind of what it was. Then I was on the table, hands down. It was a hard metal table. I didn't see it. I also don't think I felt it. I just knew it.
You just knew. What color was the table, James?
Silver.
Silver. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then it was so blinding white in there that you couldn't see. It was so bright that you couldn't make out, I personally couldn't make out a wall. It was just bright, and a type of bright.
Painful brightness or not painful to the eyes?
Not painful. And so in our existence, right? I have a light right here that's shining. It's like a stream light. You look at it, you look away, you get where you blink and you see the light,
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't light bulbs.
Mm-hmm. Because there wasn't that effect. There wasn't residual sort of impression on your visual field.
It wasn't light bulbs, and that's the best way I can describe it. It was light. there was no bulb there. It just was thick, I guess, no different than how the sky in the dream took over everything. That light, that energy, the light when I was on this table, you couldn't see through it how I see through lights here, I guess. So this gets crazy, just for any viewers. The light was thick to the point of blinding. And I saw 3 tall, super slender beings with this shape head, very narrow.
Came to a point, so like a pointed chin.
Pointed chin, rounded top, but
disproportionately large heads compared
yes.
to the body.
Yep. Lanky neck, lanky arms, but all I saw was the shadow of those 3 beings.
Oh, you just saw the shadow of those.
Yeah, I did. So I couldn't see features. I saw the exact shape.
Or a silhouette, because of
silhouette, yeah. Because of how blinding the light was. I wasn't able to see properly.
About the bodies, though, were the bodies very visible and or
the silhouette of everything, but I couldn't see skin or features. And I said at that point in time, super telepathically, there was no way I had function of my mouth. I didn't even have awareness of my body. I said telepathically, and again, I feel like meditation would help with this. I said, I'm not afraid anymore. Which is wild in and of itself because it said anymore.
Anymore, right? That's exactly what I was gonna.
Which would signify there had been another time, but I don't remember another time of this at all. So I said, I'm not afraid anymore. As soon as the word anymore left my mouth, like the more, and you can like feel that E drop off, I got like thrown into my body back in my bed. I don't want to say that my body got thrown back in my bed. It actually felt more like I would have felt like my consciousness got abducted, but where this is going to lead kind of makes it as that's not the case. So it felt like I got like vacuumed back into my body. Like when you take a vacuum hose and you go, that's how it felt.
Which I've
I
heard
almost fell out of bed.
Or I've heard people describe that sensation of being sucked back into their body, like maybe after an OBE and things like that. So
Right.
Yeah.
But this is where the evidence goes to the contrary. That was my experience. I almost fell out of bed, which I have never done in my life. I've been dreaming my whole life. I'm like, again, like early 30s. Almost fell out of bed, like thrown, like there was like a force.
There was like momentum. Like it wasn't that you were.
Yeah, it was absolutely momentum, hands down momentum.
It felt like momentum
because it went to a direction. So when you're startled, there's like a flinch, and several points of your body tend to flinch, right? Like your arm will flinch a little bit. This was my whole body going in one direction simultaneously, which is different than a flinch.
Right, which is quite strange, like because if it was just your consciousness coming back into your body, why would there be any momentum at all?
Oh, 1 second. Robo Krieger says, what kind of energy did you feel in the craft? Oh, what color? The table was silver. What kind of energy did you feel in the craft? I felt ready to make a stand. That's the only energy actually that I felt in the craft when I said, I'm not afraid anymore. I felt ready to make a stand, almost like a gotcha moment.
So like a kind of defiant emotion, kind of
very absolutely defiant. I like almost like my higher self was like, this is what you have to do. And then I was in there and I was like, it was like a gotcha. I'm not afraid anymore. And as I dropped that E, James Pike, I don't have out-of-body experiences often at all. Not even a little bit. I can astral project if I choose to. I just find it pretty, no offense to astral projecting, but I find it kind of useless unless I have a reason to, which there's pretty much never an actual reason to astral project. And I don't play with the paranormal and I don't play with the spiritual because I've just been told that what's meant to be will happen. Don't go looking. That's what I've been told, not speaking for other people. So it sucked back into the body. I woke up at the same time. I didn't even wake up. That was the other weird thing. I didn't wake up. I was sucked or thrown into my body, whichever, or both. I don't know. It was like if the feeling was that my body was the magnet and my soul was the other magnet, and they were magnetized back together. That's how it felt.
And so when you were back in the body, it didn't feel like you had woken up from some kind of crazy dream, like you were all like drowsy.
Not even a little bit. I felt more energized than ever. Like I felt like I didn't even, like I felt like I went to bed and then that happened and I was awake. Not I went to bed, that happened, and I woke up. I went to bed, that happened, and I was awake.
Yeah.
I'm very coffee prone. Like when I wake up, even after dreaming, like I need coffee. I'm not a morning person. I was just awake.
So that you would you
with
say
that gotcha feeling?
and so you'd say there's zero grogginess, just no
None.
grogginess, as if you didn't wake up from anything. Like
It
you
was
were,
wild. It was absolutely wild. Like
Yeah.
like recharged more than if I got more than any night's sleep I ever had. So then,
which is atypical, I would just say, or not the norm, I would say, after someone has a physical abduction experience, and they normally report.
sure.
They can
I
have the
have to
experience where,
pee
like,
super quick.
say again.
I'm gonna pee super quick, and then I'm gonna get back to that.
I would just say to the audience, the typical situation when someone is returned after an abduction, they feel very exhausted afterward. There's a complete and total exhaustion, really drowsy. They feel like they didn't get sleep, and that's because they perhaps didn't get sleep, or the normal amount of sleep that they normally get. Sometimes they will have a sore neck or sore parts of their body. And that's the typical, although that's not the norm. There are, of course, lots of variances with different abductions. Perfect. I just ran out of things to say.
Perfect. Okay, so this is where it gets confusing for me. And this is probably the biggest point to where I would love serious analytical outside perspective. So I woke up and I was energized. And I was like, okay, so I want to ask my husband about this, but I don't want to sway his brain in any direction. So I wasn't like, I think I got abducted. I didn't wake up and do that. I said to him, first I laid there for a second, like, whoa. What was that? And then when he woke up, I said, pretty wide-eyed, I said, did anything happen last night? That's all I said. Did anything happen last night? His response was, I feel like something happened, but nothing happened. And I was like, mind you, I've known my husband since third grade. Like, we're super tight. And I was like, what does that even mean? I was like, okay. And then I had composure and I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I feel like something happened, but nothing happened. And I was like, all right. Which to me sounds like complete mind wipe.
But it's kind of common with abductees, like they feel like something happened, but they're in bed, they're still, nothing seems to have happened, physically, but they just feel like, something occurred,
Right. So I think I asked him several times to clarify it. And he said 3 times specifically, I feel like something happened, but nothing happened. And I was like, all right. In my brain, I was like, that's a lost cause. We'll worry about that later. So I went to my toddler and older toddler. I had like a 5 and 3-year-old at that time. My teen was sleeping downstairs in the bedroom below mine. Went to my toddler and other 5-year-old. And I was like, hey guys, how'd you sleep? And they were just, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, all right, I don't want to like sway their mind either or stress them out. And I just knew that I wasn't going to get anywhere with that. So I went to my teenager's room, her bedroom was directly below mine in the basement. It was a 3-bedroom ranch with fully finished basement and 2 bedrooms also downstairs. Her bedroom directly below mine. I said, hey, how'd you sleep? Because I'm just into detective mode. And I know that if I said, I think this happened, you can inadvertently give someone an idea. And I never do that. I also don't push my beliefs on other people. I just know that this is my experience and my own. So I asked her, did anything happen? And she said, I had a dream. This is where it gets too much for me. She said, I had a dream that I was in like this house, not that one we were in. She's like, I had a dream that I was in like an old house and I was on the main floor of the house and there were ghosts walking around like, I can't remember honestly if it was bugs or ghosts. I think it was bugs. They had a dream. She had a dream that there were bugs, like big bugs walking around. I'll have to ask her again if it was bugs or ghosts. I don't know.
I think your book says ghosts.
Okay, yeah, I think it was ghosts. So she was like, and I took a chair and I slid it, and I was tapping at the ceiling, wondering what they were doing up there. And that was her experience. And then I was like, that's fucked up. Like,
yeah.
I mean, from my experience to being consciously submitted and surrendered to saying, I said, I'm not afraid anymore, but it was essentially, I got you, or I saw. To my husband saying, do I have any Scottish heritage? I actually don't know. Polish. I know I have Polish heritage. But from him saying, I feel like something happened, but nothing happened, to my daughter being in the room directly below me, saying that she had a dream that there was something walking around in the room above her, and then she grabbed a chair and was tapping on the ceiling, wondering what they were doing up there. I've asked them about their dreams a bunch. I've asked how you slept so many times. This is just an insane amount of parallels, and it's never even been remotely like this before or after.
Right. Yeah. So those correlations. Your husband also, felt like something had happened, and he wouldn't typically say something like that. I think is what you said.
10 out of 10, I would say, how'd you sleep? And he'd say, good.
Yeah.
Or he'd say, I didn't, my back hurt. Or that's pretty much the 2 answers.
So let's just do a quick analysis before we close out. Now, the fact that this started with a dream does not invalidate that there could have been an actual abduction experiences. There are abduction experiences that start out as a dream. They're real abduction experiences, and some of these, have a lot of, corroboration and proof, even from other witnesses or marks on the body. You can have abduction experiences where, like, the person, the abductee, is having a dream, and he may see the gray in a dream, like the alien or gray manifests itself into the dream. And oftentimes there's like elements that that seem symbolically tied to an abduction event, like the gray might come to the window and like want the person to come out the window, or to go somewhere, that they're asked to go somewhere with the ET, and then it becomes a real abduction experience, and that's that's just definitely possible. You can be asleep and then remain asleep, and be taken. Now, a lot of times that doesn't happen.
That's actually where my biggest kind of confusion is, and this is a loaded question, but by saying I'm not afraid anymore, does that have correlation to my 14-year-old experience and when I was so afraid.
Right. Yeah.
Would that be the same thing with a different perspective? Or would it be, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, is because I just don't know why I would tell them I'm not afraid anymore. Because if they were decent, there's just a lot of question there. There's so much question.
A question that could be asked there is, if they were abducting you at that period of time when you were 14 and that was going on, then could the dreams, the nightmares, all have been kind of an overlay, that was obscuring, what was actually really going on, possibly,
Right. And
and
then what's with the the fear aspect versus what's giving me the things that had helped me. So that's
Mhm.
and
Right.
part of me wonders if each individually is a reflection of what I'm allowing in
Right.
subconsciously.
And we also know too, and I know, there's evidence to the contrary here and contradictions, but we also know that astral abductions are definitely a real thing. There's some people think, like Ray Hernandez, that all abductions are astral abductions or non-physical abductions, and they're taking your consciousness, and that's all they're doing. I have a lot of trouble with that conclusion.
And the one thing with that for me is the fact that my daughter had that dream of something walking. That was huge for me.
Yeah.
I mean, if she, like, her dream of something walking around and she's tapping, wondering what's walking around. And then if you go back to the dream of me, being dragged upstairs, and the fact that how long and how many times has this happened, do I think that I would be able to, undergo, say, hypnosis and go deeper into this? I honestly don't know, because I do feel like there is a point to where your brain can also protect you and certain things protect you. So
Yeah.
it's a tough question to know how much you want to unveil that veil.
Right. And my personal perspective on that, having done, a certain amount of abduction research, is that it's generally positive to open that up,
Yeah.
to uncover the experience. For the abductee, it's generally positive. There's perhaps, the crux of this is the processing of the trauma, and the, known therapeutic benefits of processing trauma. If you have traumatic events
Yeah.
that are completely suppressed in memory, they're just, they're causing a psychological problem, whether, even though you're not aware of it,
Yeah.
and
I would totally agree.
and that was just clearly John Mack's conclusion on the matter, is that it was advisable to open up the experience and to confront the abductee. And typically, also, when the abductee would confront, what's happening to them, and kind of stop resisting, the ongoing abduction experiences would tend to change, in their quality.
And I would be open to learning that or going forth with those types of things. And that I know that the more that I do certain things like write this, more space has been opened up. And I agree with you, because the more healing that you do, the more understanding that you become aware of, it actually just creates space for you to handle more, usually,
Mm-hmm.
from clearing things up. James Pike said, do you ever experience synchronicity loading up or happening repeatedly before a UFO event?
Probably leading up to.
Yeah, I would say I do to both of those. I would also say that I see that those things happen before I'm about to do something energetically also. So if I'm about to, like, oh, somebody's coming over and things start happening, I do feel a charge, is what I would call it.
Mm-hmm. Anything with numbers, though?
Last night I woke up and I turned the heater down at 222. He said, yep. There's a lot of things in patterns of 3. I'm born on the 9th of November. I have 2 other daughters also born on the 9th. And then my third daughter is born on the 18th, which is 2 9s. And
strange because
I was born 11/9/1990, which is 3 9s and 3 1s.
That's strange because I just recently, and because I write down all my synchronicities and I keep a log, I started having 9s come up. And I feel like, and I'd have to check, the dates in my book. I feel like it was right around the time I met you. And I didn't know what I never figured out. Like I try to decode them and figure out, what it's in reference to. And I could not come up with anything then, but 9 was coming up again and again.
I recognize the pattern of all of it, and I recognize the charge. But it always helps me to not bring attention to it, because I feel like when you start intentionally uncoding things, for me, it interferes somehow with the authenticity and the flow.
I think it can. We could have a big discussion on this.
Yeah.
But I have come and I just.
But I also think belief shapes things. So if I believe that, I think it actually can inadvertently have that be the cause and effect.
I have found that that with my synchronicities, there are messages being conveyed, which aren't immediately or intuitively obvious, and but when I just put a little bit of thought to it, sometimes I can uncover quickly something that, oh my God, and now I remember, I saw this earlier in the day. And, it's just by, going through a little bit of legwork, thinking about it many, many times, it can suddenly dawn on me, what this is about. And I kind of have this revelatory moment.
Yeah, it's weird.
James has another question, and then I think
I agree.
conclude for tonight.
So did your mother or any other relatives of that generation have any experiences that would lead you to believe that this was an intergenerational UFO contact? Hands down, yes. Reason being, not because of XYZ's experiences. Definitely not my mom's side. Absolutely not my mom's side. I mean, she's very just like, just be good. Like, just do what you're supposed to. My dad is just the same, as where just everything is so by the seat of his pants energetic kind of thing. But he doesn't, like, he grew up in a different time and just had a far more difficult time, because I feel like sometimes when you have an energy awareness, it can be almost traumatizing in and of itself to just go through just not being understood. And I think that that was his experience. But also my grandpa and my entire side on that side, they are all such free spirits. They don't understand fitting in. And my dad would take me hiking and teach me about like, no, just be who you are. And there was, because my parents were split from the age I was like roughly 2 when my mom remarried, and then the other people came in. But I wouldn't even say that it would lead me to believe that this was like intergenerational UFO contact. My dad does say that he has missing hours from being on a boat on Lake Michigan, to where then he was suddenly at the shore, and that's all he's got. Like, that is all he's got. That's about his abductee situation. But if I listened to my energy translation, I know when other people have an intentional awareness, because there is, in my experience, when people are energy aware and things like that, they have an intention also to acknowledge it. And then there are other people who refuse to acknowledge this type of existence. And I can feel that. I can feel when somebody is open or curious. Like, I can feel all that more than somebody telling me what they had for breakfast. I start off when I meet somebody, which makes it easy for me to know, like, my dad versus my mom. I understand energy more than I understand a conversation usually. Somebody can tell me something, but I understand their energy more than I understand what they're telling me. And energy works a lot quicker. So I'm still open with hearing their perspective and what they're saying. Go back to the Cheerios example. I'm open to hearing that and understanding that, because that's what they've experienced. But I feel energy a lot faster, and I interpret that a lot faster than what people are saying. I get the energy immediately. I process what people say as they say it.
Very interesting. And I would just say, based on what we know about the phenomenon, it's almost a given, or at least a high probability that if you're an abductee, and you're truly an abductee and you're having abduction experiences, one of your parents and their parents, are probably also abductees. And it's normally almost axiomatic that if you're an abductee, it is intergenerational.
Hands it said. Yeah.
And
loads of trauma.
Yeah.
Healed though.
Which we did get into if you go back in the interview, James. There's
that's in the earlier part. It goes thoroughly through most of it.
But okay, so being that we're almost 2 hours and 20 minutes,
I know.
conclude here, but this was fine. I'm glad we really delved into this and thoroughly went through this. It's definitely, I would say, possible. I would say, concludingly, it's a possible abduction experience. I would think that the logical next step would be to attempt regression. With caution, with a lot of caution. But it really is, one of the only tools that we have. It's not perfect, and there can be a lot of problems with it. I have a lot of questions with it. I think that the ETs can interfere with us while we're in a hypnotic state, and just like they do on the craft. That they have we know they have the psionic ability to make you see certain things and to believe that you're going through this when you're actually not. I think it's possible that in the case of many abductees, this could be going on during the course of regressions, and there could be a lot of interference on that level. But at the same time, there is a lot of, in the literature, corroboration, from regression testimonies, like the content that comes out of regression can be corroborated from someone's conscious memory, or another abductee, their, regression testimony, seems to match up with it.
Yeah, I'm super open to that. I just, like, if anybody knows a regression specialist of certain types or whatever, I would just want someone who has a certain level of merit. And I haven't gone fishing for it just because I don't have, I wouldn't know where to go or who to trust. And for me to be regressed, I would have to have a pretty significant level of trust.
Yeah, I definitely think that's important. But anyway, okay, I guess we'll wrap this up now.
Yeah.
20 minutes, and thank you so much for doing this. This was
really, and also I'm the new co-host.
But Heidi's going to be our new co-host, and she'll be with us in every forthcoming episode.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your questions. I think that was just good all around.
You're welcome. And yeah, thanks for telling your story. And I think that there's just some things about it that are really important and could definitely help people, by hearing it. So, okay. Thanks everyone for watching. And we will see you on the next episode of Paranormally.
Bye.
Yep. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. A Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure is looking to talk with ufologists, researchers, investigators, contactees, abductees, channelers, and more for upcoming shows. Or if you have stories, photos, videos, questions, suggestions, or comments, please contact us through Messenger or email us at paranormalypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also visit us at paranormalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. I thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranormally Beyond Disclosure.